Hey guys, and welcome to the Fish Room. I'm Rachel O'Leary, and today is Thursday, which means it's full of a lot of busy work. And what I want to accomplish today is to catch some of the fish out of this top row of aquariums that were previously used for sail tanks and move them to a different part in the fish room. And I thought while we were doing this today, I'd talk a little bit about how I choose where to buy fish and who I choose to buy fish from, and sort of what I think about when I'm looking to buy fish specifically online. It can be a very confusing process, and there's a few things that I think will help you guys when you're ready to purchase fish online as well. So let's get started. So I'm going to start like I always do with dropping the water line. This just makes life way easier for catching fish out of an aquarium when you're trying to remove them all. Now you may hear my pump kick on and off. That's my water drainage system. Next, I'm going to start by removing the bulk of the plants and putting them into a bucket to make sure that I don't drop any fish on the ground. Now there are a ton of anubias and ferns and mosses in this aquarium, and I will want to use them again. I'm simply trying to catch these fish to move them to a new aquarium because as I've talked about before, I want to try and make this entire wall of aquariums into display or breeding tanks. So I need to get the fish that aren't going to be used in those tanks out. Now dropping the water line and removing the decor just makes this a much faster process. It also makes it a messy process. So if you guys have been watching, you know that I am starting a 75-gallon Lake Tanganyika tank to celebrate my 40th birthday, which is in a couple weeks. And while I am an online retailer and I can order fish in bulk and for discounted rates, I chose to order these fish from a company that I really respect instead. And that's because one of the things that's a big problem with online sales is that there isn't a whole lot of integrity that goes into quarantine or quality. I've ordered from a lot of the more popular online retailers and just been underwhelmed with the quality I've received. And these are expensive fish, so I want to make sure that I'm getting quality. And if you watched my video on Tuesday, you know that I'm also pretty concerned about making sure that I get captive bred specimens. And that's because a lot of these fish are threatened in the wild, so we don't need to contribute to the problem of them being threatened by asking for them to be collected. Plus they're all very breedable, and often this makes them a bit more sturdy in our aquariums, as well as an easier acclimation. I'm going to let this tank settle down and then I'll start catching fish. Let's look into some of the tanks. We'll look at the one that I'm going to stock next. So I decided to go with an online retailer, and how I choose who I buy from is a multifaceted process. I like to start off by doing some research on the particular fish that I'm going to purchase, and a lot of times you'll find search result hits of people keeping or breeding them on various forums. And I know not a lot of people spend a lot of time on forums these days, but there's still a wealth of knowledge there. I also try and read reviews for various sellers before I decide, and just try and pick someone who really knows a lot about the fish they're selling, because I feel like you get a better product, and if you have questions you can ask. So I bought my fish from davesrarefish.com, which is owned by Dave Schumacher, and he's located in Texas. And Dave is someone I've known for quite a few years now. We both attend a lot of the same cichlid conventions, and he has a reputation of just really knowing his stuff. In fact, he lectures like I do at aquarium clubs, he breeds a lot of fish, or he buys from local breeders. So this is exactly what I was looking for my African cichlids for the new aquarium. Now, one thing I think is really, really important when buying fish online is that you actually get to interact with the seller so that you can ask any questions you have before you purchase. And if you've been on my website, you'll notice that I don't have a shopping cart, and it's for this reason. I want to make sure that my customers, or if I'm purchasing, that all of the questions get taken care of before the fish arrive at our home. I think it's kind of sketchy to be able to buy things that are alive, like fish or other pets, from a shopping cart. And one of the things that I really liked about Dave is that he was able to give me a lot of information about the behavior, like what to expect from the fish that I get, as well as how they breed, what they eat, and that's because he actually works with almost all the fish that he sells. And I find this to be super, super helpful. The fish in this aquarium are ones that I have never worked with before, so it's super important to me that I am able to get as much information from an experienced person as I can before purchasing. Now, when I went to stock my 75-gallon South American Nano, I didn't need any help, and I just imported the fish because they're all species I had worked with before. It's really, really important when you're getting ready to buy fish that you know what to expect from them and spend a lot of time learning about how they eat, what their behavior's like, so we can provide an appropriate environment for them, not only so that we get a better visual display, but so that the fish can live out their best life. One of the things I appreciate about Dave is that he did not think it was at all strange that I wanted to put small fish in a large aquarium. One of the other things I really liked is that you can actually get a human being on the phone at his shop. You can call and talk to Dave himself in order to ask questions. This was huge for me and really helped me prepare myself to get the fish that'll be coming in sometime in the next week. Now, while I understand there's a certain gratification from the immediacy of being able to just put your fish in a shopping cart, especially if you know exactly what you want, I really think it's in your best interests to find out more information about the fish you're getting from the person who's selling them. There's not that many retailers that actually do any sort of quarantine of their critters, and it's important to know this before you buy them. If you're getting fish that have not been through any sort of quarantine, you want to make sure that you do that at home before you put them into your display aquarium, and that's for a few reasons. Quarantine allows us to protect our established fish from any diseases that new fish could be carrying, but it also protects our old fish, but it also protects our new fish from our older established fish. Shipping is inherently stressful, and it's really, really important that we set our fish up for success. So when I'm getting new fish to add to an aquarium, I like to put them in a relatively bare aquarium in order to be able to monitor how they're eating, what they're eating, if they're eating, as well as any defects in their slime coat, their finnage, or just in general. Now, I know this tank is a hot mess, which is why we're moving fish to be able to clean it out. I'm catching the ember touchers that are in here, and then we'll let the tank fully settle. I'll vacuum it all out, clean the filters, and put everything back. It's not at all uncommon when you pull out a bunch of filters to have the tank look like this. We're going to let this tank settle, and then we'll come back and make sure we got all of the fish, finish cleaning it, and fill it back up. Now, if you guys have been watching, you know that I've set up all of these aquariums, as well as 2 racks over on that side of my fish room, to accept, hold, and quarantine fish. And these are pretty typical examples of how I set up my quarantine aquariums. They are generally bare bottom with a sponge filter and a small amount of plant. Now, I use plants in my quarantine tank simply because the vast majority of fish that I'm getting in and quarantining come from areas where there's a lot of plants. And being in just a bare aquarium when you're a teeny tiny fish can be really stressful. And what we want to do when fish are in quarantine is to bolster their immunity and give them the best opportunity to be as healthy as we can. I do not use medications prophylactically, meaning I don't use them just to use them. I only use medications if I am suspicious of disease and have a very good idea of what I'm treating. Because let's face it, meds in and of themselves are inherently toxic. They're designed to kill organisms. So I try not to use them unless I have to. For a lot of the time, bolstering the fish's immunity through a really good quality diet and lots of very clean water is enough to prevent any illness from occurring. Though that is not always the case, and there are certainly plenty of times when we need to medicate our fish. Now, all of the aquariums I've set up to accept new fish do have cycled sponge filters that I've kept running in other aquariums that have contained fish for this entire time. And this will really help me when I'm shuffling fish around in here and when I'm ready to get in new fish, because it'll mean that there is a bacterial colony already established in those aquariums. I'm going to grab the ember tetras that we call it and put them into this aquarium here. Now, one of the things that I like to do in my aquariums that are going to have fish that are for sale is I put a tag on them. And one of the ways I track which tanks are totally empty and which ones are ready for fish is I just use painter's tape. And I put it on the aquariums with the tag sticking up if the tank is empty or horizontal if it's across. And then after I add fish to this aquarium, I label it and put a date. Now, the amber tetras have been here since November of last year, so they are definitely fully quarantined. But I'll still label the tank with their species name. And this just helps when people come to visit the fish room or when I'm packing orders to find fish quickly. Now, there is no need to do any sort of acclimation when moving fish around in my fish room because the parameters of my source water are all the same, so it's all pretty close in the fish room. You can see they're already swimming around and acting fine. Now, I am going to go ahead and add some of the plants from the other aquarium into here simply because I know these fish are totally healthy. And what this will do is just help them feel a bit more comfortable so that they continue to eat and color up nicely for me to get good images and good video of them for my customers to see. I always try and wipe down the glass when I'm done working in an aquarium as well to prevent any etching and to reduce the amount of water spots that are in the fish room in the long term. So just to recap, when I myself as a consumer are getting ready to buy fish, I like to ask a lot of questions of the seller. Now, I do buy a lot of wild caught fish too, specifically most of the nano species, because they're just not being bred or produced in any sort of numbers, other than the occasional hobbyist who has success. So it's very important to ask about what the fish are eating, what their water parameters are like, how long the person has had them or if they bred them, and just try and get your information on the fish before you purchase. The best price is not often the best fish. And I'm not saying that you should buy the most expensive, because that's not the case either. I prefer to buy from people who really know about the species that they're selling. And I encourage you to do the same. Ask your questions before you buy. As always, thank you guys for your continued support. I was going to do another spying on my fish video today, but I just couldn't pick a tank. So if you could take a second and let me know down in the comments section below which tank you would like for me to spy on next, it would be really helpful. And then the people who like the suggestions, make sure you upvote that comment so that I have an idea of which one is the most popular. I also wanted to mention that October 4th through 6th, I believe, I will be at the All Aquarium Catfish Convention down in Herndon, Virginia. It is one of my favorite events of all times. I've never missed one since I started going to fish events. And that Friday, I'm going to be giving a live aquascaping demonstration on how to create a hill stream environment. So if you guys are interested in attending that event, go to my website and there's a link there to the event. And I hope to see a lot of you there. It is one of the best information-packed events of the year, in my opinion.